It's a Wednesday, and it's a Wednesday, and it's a Wednesday, and we love Wednesdays, don't we? Why do we love Wednesdays? We love them because we bring you conversations that, probably you just dream of hearing, but you don't get the opportunity to hear. So we say, don't worry, we will let you hear that. And you admire personalities. You ask these questions, you don't get the answers, but we bring you the answers. We have a very big personality here. Some of us, growing up, we could be in the kitchen or in the bathroom, and we'll be able to identify that voice because it was unique, very unique. He actually came into the media scene when some of us were really young. We looked up to him, wanted to be like him, and we ought to celebrate the man that he is. Whom am I talking about? I'm talking about the man who started his career journey at GBC. This man went into comedy. This man delved into politics. The man, Fritz Baffour, is right here this morning. Good morning, Uncle Fritz.
Good morning.
Oh my God, did you hear the voice? Uncle Fritz, before we have our conversation, now I want you to take a look at this comedy, stand-up comedy that he did.
Nigeria commentary, Ghana against Nigeria in the old days. And the Nigerian commentator is very aggressive. Here we are at the Surulere Sports Stadium, where the match between the Greedy Eagles of Nigeria and the Black Stars of Ghana is about to take place. The ball is in the center circle. The Ghanaians are coming on the pitch. Look at the way they are walking. The way they are walking, we know who's going to lose. Look at the way the Nigerians are coming on the pitch. Then the match starts. The match starts. Straight away, Adeokun gets the ball, gives it to Ayinla. Ayinla to Adeokun. Adeokun beats one man, beats another. Pass the ball. Afolabi going to shoot. Idiot.
This man deserves a standing ovation, I must say. You are fantastic, and we feel honored to have you here today.
Thank you.
Yes, and I was asking you about your voice.
Yes.
And you did tell me that even as a young boy, you still had this voice.
Yes, I can't remember when I didn't have a deep voice. As I was telling you earlier, when I was in secondary school, the Form 1 boys were put together and they set up a choir. And I was the only one who wasn't allowed to sing. So I was the only one, when they were performing, I'd be sitting with the seniors, watching my mates singing.
Because your voice was too deep.
Too deep, yes. Because most of them were tenors and alto. And I had maybe a basso profundo or something.
Your voice is something else. But will you say that it's your voice that led you into the media space?
Well, not really. I think it was my diction.
Right.
The fact that I was good at spoken English. So I was invited once to come on a program in 1965.
Okay.
When broadcasting TV first started in Ghana. And they sort of liked the way I spoke. So they asked me to come, and I started doing programs as a guest. And that gave me the love for it. But prior to that, my own father was very, very much into the arts. He was an engineer.
Okay.
But very much into the arts.
First mechanical engineer in Ghana, right?
Yeah, first Ghanaian engineer. He graduated, first engineer graduated on Ghanaian soil.
Wow.
So that was it. But he was, when he was in Achimota as a student doing his undergraduate degree, he produced the operas and all that. And then he acted in The Boy Kumasinu.
Okay.
So we always had that kind of creativity around the house. And most of the time we spent the times we spent with him in leisure, we listened to music and he explained to us the wherefores of music and everything. So that was my inclination.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful one. And, so you got in there as a media person and you took over. Now let's talk a bit about your diction. Did you grow up wholly in Ghana, or you got the diction because you schooled abroad?
No, I grew up in Ghana.
Okay.
I grew up in Ghana. I went to elocution classes when I was living on the tech campus. There was a lady called Mrs. Caldwell, and she got all the children of the lecturers who wanted to do elocution classes. And my father spoke very well. He was very, very, very eloquent. So that thing passed on.
Okay.
I mean, he was the sort of person who let us read and correct us. And up to this day, one of my biggest assets is the dictionary. How to pronounce words, how to use them, and all that kind of thing. So
Okay.
it's an exercise.
So born, bred, you exercised the diction that you have today.
Yes. So when I went to England, they were surprised. But then at that time, if you went to secondary school in Ghana, even the middle schools, you learned to speak very well because there was an emphasis on grammar, on the very essence of the English language or language. You learn to pronounce words properly. You learn to use the right grammar and all that kind of thing. So it was not something that was rare, and we read a lot, and I
Okay.
still read a lot.
That's great. Now you came into the media, back into the media scope. GBC, how many years did you work?
I didn't work for GVC.
You didn't work with.
That is an error.
Okay, please correct.
I was an independent producer.
Okay.
Now, when I went to live in, I went to England to do my for further studies.
Right.
And I ended up working for an advertising company.
Okay.
And that got me back into the media space. So I ended up working for Tyne Tees Television, which is in Newcastle in the northeast of London, of England. And I worked there for a while. And when I came back home to Ghana, I couldn't get a job because of the bureaucratic way in which we employ media people. You had to start from the beginning, and I'd had the experience, so I just struck out on my own.
Okay.
So that's how and then I became an independent producer using GBC,
Okay. Okay.
facilities.
Now that makes, okay.
I was the first, actually.
First.
Yeah.
Wow.
At that time, most people worked for GBC or they came as artists. But I bought time, and then I put my programs on.
So you're the first to buy time on GBC.
And then, yes, and then produce my programs, yeah.
That's fantastic. And your programs did so well.
Well,
Did you make a lot of revenue out of it? back
no,
then?
it wasn't. That wasn't the essence of why I was doing it. As I said, I'm the son of my father was an engineer, but first and foremost, he was a teacher.
Right.
Because, and then my grandfather was a teacher. So I think teaching is in our blood. And I like to pass on information. And when you read a lot, you learn a lot of things that you want to pass on. And I realized when I started, I was doing comedy. I started doing comedy because at the time it was very difficult for me to, I was an MC, I could tell jokes, and I realized that the jokes were people responded to the jokes very well. So I decided that I'd mix a little bit of money from stand-up comedy.
Okay.
And so I did it. And I did it in Nigeria. In fact, the Nigerians believe that I introduced
Stand-up
the
comedy.
So I have an award. I should have brought it, but I have an award
Okay.
from them that I was a trailblazer in the stand-up comedy, genre of the arts. I just decided I'd concentrate on making documentaries and the series Sincerely Yours, which was the whole idea of Sincerely Yours was a human interest program where if I went abroad, I wanted to do what you said earlier. That
Yeah.
I wanted to ask questions that Ghanaians would normally ask if they had that opportunity. So I was doing the abroad thing. Then I realized that we didn't know enough about Ghana. And as I come from very different parts of Ghana, I have antecedents from different parts of Ghana. Everybody knows that. I'm part Northerner, part Brong, part Fanti, part Ga, part Guan, whatever. And I have the proof of those relationships. So I decided to start chasing after those things to find out what it was, how it all happened. That one man could come from about 12 different places. And it was very interesting. So then it piqued my interest in terms of Ghana. So I started going around and I did Sincerely Yours around Ghana and all that. And it helped me because I'm very, very keen on history, both world history and Ghanaian history.
Right.
So that's what got me going around.
But what took you into politics then? Because it seems you were very interested in.
I'm political.
Okay.
My dad was a very close friend and confidant of Kwame Nkrumah. And at a certain time, I think he was his most senior scientific advisor, being the vice chancellor of the University of Kwame Nkrumah University.
Yeah.
And so naturally, I asked questions and all that. And so I was inclined to that kind of politics. So right now, my politics, I'm left of center. I'm not a right-winger.
Okay.
Yeah. And then...
If you say that, can you explain it to us, please?
Yeah, that means that I'm a socialist.
Okay.
I believe in the equality of opportunity. I believe that society should never leave anybody behind. That everybody should be given an opportunity to rise, and that we should create the enabling environment for that to happen.
Right.
Now, in 1966, when they overthrew Kwame Nkrumah, my dad went through a torrid time because there was vendetta against most of Nkrumah's, Nkrumah himself and anybody around him. And so, that's when I decided that I'd do everything I can so that that aspect of malice in our politics should vanish. And so I started working, started reading, started doing things. And then in 1969, as a young 17-year-old, I joined the Justice Party, I was with Ababase. Then I shifted to the Justice Party when all the opposition parties came together as a youth organizer. And when I went to Britain, I realized the importance of Nkrumah in terms of the African, because he portrayed a certain kind of African that I admired, that an African who could do everything in the world. So that's what I did. Yeah. So in reality, that's how I became a politician.
That's nice. And, you were appointed as Minister of Information under the Atta Mills government. You did very well. You were in Parliament as well.
Yes.
And you haven't gone back to Parliament.
No. When I decided to go to Parliament, I told my constituents that I'd be there for 2 terms.
Oh.
So at the end of the second term, I gave them ample notice.
Why so? Why 2 terms?
I went there because I had a task at hand. I wanted us to remove the government of the day, and I thought I'd be an instrument in doing so. And then in doing that, to work on the policies that would bring about a certain kind of change that fitted in with my ideology. And then I realized that I could do more for my country outside Parliament than inside Parliament.
Okay. Okay. Now, you said your father was a confidant of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah.
Why didn't you join CPP? Why the NDC?
At the time, the CPP was in disarray, and it didn't have a sense of direction. And that's where it lost its direction. But then a very weird thing happened.
Okay.
When I was very young, in kindergarten, I went to a kindergarten which was also a primary school called U-Nation, Mrs. Sam's School, which was a school that most of the senior public servants and the businessmen in Ghana at the time in the 50s sent their children to. And that's where I met Jerry John Rawlings.
Okay.
But his wife, Nakwinidu John Rawlings, was a family friend. The father was one of my father's closest friends. So I sort of grew up with them, and that relationship has stayed until now, you know. And so when I came back to Ghana and I finally met up with them, I was introduced once again to Jerry Rawlings. And it was a very interesting encounter. And I got taken in by him. I was very impressed with what he had to offer for Ghana. So I decided that I'd help him. And so when we went into the Fourth Republican Constitution, I sort of helped at the beginning of the NDC. So naturally it became a thing for me to be a solid member.
Right, okay. It makes a lot of sense. But from what you said also, with regards to your standings now, the inclusive government that you spoke about, where people ought to, you know, enjoy certain levels of things that come in place. Do you still belong to the NDC?
Very much so. Very, very much so. My problem is that I think we've lost our way. Because we've forgotten that we're...
Who has lost the way? The NDC?
No.
The country?
The political milieu has lost its way. Because Ghana is a developing country. It's not developed.
Okay.
So in my mind, it's a project. It's a project under construction. So I'm not enamored by the fact that we're fighting each other, we're insulting each other, all right, and there's so much dissonance in the country. There's a lack of harmony in the country, and that's what's created what we're seeing today. You know, I cannot hate somebody because that person is MPP. There's something, I think, intrinsically wrong with that. But I believe that if we are at odds in terms of our ideologies, there must be a point that we can talk and we can discuss the way forward. And since we're all Ghanaians, and if we agree that Ghana is a project, then we've got to work together to turn this country into a better place than it is now. And that is my side of the story. It doesn't mean that I won't work for my party to win. But at the back of my mind, Ghana always comes first. I wouldn't like to see any Ghanaian lose his life because of politics. I wouldn't like any Ghanaian to be retarded because of politics. And so that is my argument.
But why do you think, I want to put my question right. How did we get here with regards to politics?
Well, I think that, one, we have to look at our constitution again. The fact that we've developed a system where we have two main political parties means that people take sides. You know, we've got people who are MPP and people who are NDC, and the twain will never meet. That's wrong. That's one. And secondly, I think that it's about time we did a real separation of powers. That means that when you are a minister, you are a minister, not a member of parliament. And so therefore a parliamentarian stays in parliament and has oversight over the executive and the judiciary and all that. Because when you are a member of parliament and you have the chance of being a minister, it makes you ambitious. Though in reality, the salaries of members of parliament and ministers are virtually at par, except that a minister in Ghana, society has a higher social cachet than an MP. Then you have the police security and the various privileges that are accorded to you. But that shouldn't matter. What is important is that we should all work to make our country a better place. And so I believe that personal ambition and other negative attitudes have crept into our political system. I call them the 3 E's: ego, all right, entitlement, and eye service. Those are the three things that are governing most of the political narrative in Ghana now. And that is wrong. We need to change the way we're doing things to make this country a better place.
When you say eye service, what's the eye service?
Eye service is that people say things to please so that they can be accorded a certain privilege or a certain position. And so there's a certain dishonesty when you're dealing with people who you feel can make things better for you. So you flatter them. That's eye service. Entitlement is, for instance, I was appalled when I heard that Parliament wanted parliamentarians to have sirens and policemen and they could drive on. I just thought that is totally wrong for a developing country.
Why do you say so?
You're not better than the man on the street. If he is struggling, all right, you shouldn't give yourself the advantage, all right, over him. People they get up in the morning, they don't have access to water, electricity, they've struggled and they're on their way to work, they're in a trotro because the roads are bad, we haven't done the right kind of governance things, and so you've got traffic jams and everything, and because of that omission, you are driving past them. There's something wrong about it. There's something wrong about it. And that is the entitlement that I worry about.
Right.
You see, we should be concerned about the lot of the man and woman on the street, because they are the ones who make us. We know that Ghana, the only thing that we own 100% is cocoa. Think of the cocoa farmers, how they work.
What about gold?
Gold is concession. So we have only a percentage because the people who come in do not share the gold equally with us.
No, they don't.
No, we pay, it's as if they are paying rent to us. But cocoa is owned by us.
Okay, but with that, won't we say it's our government's fault?
Of course, it's not our government's fault per se because before 1957, we were a British colony. And they didn't come here to be friends with us. They came here to exploit us. And they left those exploitative initiatives in our hands. And because we were not serious about it, we did not change the way it went, the system is. And that's what we should have done. So you can blame them a bit, but the antecedents are from the fact that we're a colony, you see. So right now we really have to sit down and say, we've got these resources. And that's one of the reasons why I believe in Ghana. We've got incredible resources. And the paramount of all our resources is the human resource base. I find Ghanaians far more intelligent than the average American on the street. When you talk to a Ghanaian, the knowledge, the sense of gravitas they have and everything, if they had what the Americans had, I think would be, shooting to Mars.
But there's a case whereby we keep on selling our state institutions to foreigners.
Well, it's got to do with the fact that we also have to have an understanding of our culture. We have to have an understanding of how we did things at a certain time. The cocoa thing, for example, the reason why cocoa is so successful is because of the Busa system, where you share. You come in with your expertise, but you have to have you share, so that at the end of it all, there's a certain equanimity. And that's what made cocoa such a success. We have to do that. And we have to also look at the social impact of whatever decision we make in selling or in engaging in any kind of trade with foreign partners.
Right.
We really have to look at that.
And it would be better? Do you think any government will come in and look at that?
Well,
looking at us depending.
It's not only the government.
We keep depending on
we also have to have
foreigners.
A lobby of the common man has got to have a lobby. One of the biggest problems, again, in Ghana is that we don't have a sense of redress. If you have a problem, we don't have a point of redress, sorry. If you have a problem, you've got to know where to go to have that problem solved. We don't have it. I used to be chairman of the Defense and Interior Select Committee in Parliament. So I got to know about the police and the army and the navy and all that. Now, 2 days ago, a friend of mine got robbed and called me and said, look, I've been robbed. And so what do I do? And I said, why don't you go to the police? He said, no, I won't go to the police. Why? Because they'll waste my time and it will also my resources, which I felt was very painful. Because when you go to Sweden or even America and there's a problem, you know where to go to seek redress.
Yeah.
The justice system works, the police work, all right? It doesn't cost you money, all right? And in terms of time wasting, it's not there. I'm not saying our police are bad. I have a great admiration for the current IGP. I know him well.
Do you think he's the best IGP we've had?
I can't say that because I've not had the same experience of him as with the others.
Okay.
An uncle of mine was an IGP, and J.H. Kovner.
Okay.
So I could say, oh, he was the best because he was a lovely man.
Right.
But the dynamics have changed. When Ghana was independent, we had about 4 to 5 million people. Now, some 60 plus years, we are 35 million. Have we built the capacity to that level? No. So that's what worries me, you see. And this is what we've got to consider. Half the time when you see people in the media, politicians, they are insulting, hurling insults at each other. They're not talking about solutions.
Yeah.
They're not talking about research and everything. We have a National Development Planning Commission. We don't use it. They are the ones who are the experts. They are the technical people who understand and know the system, know the wherefores of what development activities we need to embark on and how we can go about it in terms of oversight, in terms of monitoring and everything. We don't use them. We really have to sit down and say, it's not about us anymore. It's about the people.
As a person into history, I think this month or last month? This month. There's been so much debate on the founder or founders of Ghana. I know you know about it.
I know about it.
I have to pick your opinion on it.
Oh, yeah. Naturally, people will say I'm biased, but Kwame Nkrumah was the one who was the spearhead of our liberation struggle. And I don't want to beat around the bush too much with this, because I believe that we have a very competent group of historians in this country. And it's about time they got up and started using their documentation to say that this is the case. You understand? Because unlike when the Europeans came and our history was oral history, and there's nothing wrong with oral history.
But it changes with time. Oral history changes with time, right?
The way we used to do it was not foolproof per se, but it was important. And it's been accepted by UNESCO that oral history is a very credible form of imparting history or recording history. But in terms of from that time to now, the documentation is there. So when we talk about the founder, it's not that he wasn't, Kwame Nkrumah was the sole founder per se, but he spearheaded it.
Okay.
And so therefore we should make him the spearhead, the arrowhead of the whole process. And it's a fact, all right? And when we mention other people who didn't have that impact in terms of global impact, the whole world looks at Kwame Nkrumah as somebody who comes from Ghana, and we should be very proud of him, and we should raise him to the level of the George Washingtons and the Winston Churchills and the Ho Chi Minhs and, you know, and the Mao Zedong and all those people. So I think that we're being disingenuous when we do not accord him that respect.
Great. Great. And today we actually learning a lot. I wish I had all day to continue, but let me ask you this. Are you going back into production anytime soon?
Oh yeah, I've produced a couple of documentaries.
Okay.
I'm working on one. I'm working on a documentary on Jerry John Rawlings.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
Because I believe that you know, I have a deep admiration for him. I know that he has his detractors, like every human being. But I knew him beyond the pale. So, you know, I really have to do something for people to understand the kind of man he was. Because, you know, when we saw him at face value, we didn't understand. But as I grow older, I appreciate him more.
Fantastic. Fritz Baffour, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you for letting us understand how politics should be played, not dirty, but rather we can come together to build a better Ghana. We are super grateful for that. Anything you want to say before you go?
We've got elections on the 7th of December. Let's not shed any blood. Let's try and make it as peaceful as possible. We don't need to kill ourselves for power. Ghana is better and greater than that.
Thank you so much. I love those words. I'll definitely cut these words and put it on my social media page. And I'll ask people to reshare because it's very important. We are super grateful that you made time for us.
Thank you, too.
Right. And this has been all we have for you with regards to the big interview. However, I told you the Big Chef Cooking Competition, the tertiary edition, of course, we are still doing it. Yes, as we are doing it, we are at Koforidua Technical University, and we want you to take a look at exactly what is happening there. But before then, don't forget to play the game, quick cash game, *281#, *281#. Play, 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 play. The more you play, the more your chances of winning money. And after that, we'll definitely also have Dan Kwekuyebwa, who will be seated with our very own Nathaniel Atto, who has love for sports. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. But let me go to Koforidua, actually. So we go to Koforidua. On that note, we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, we have more for you. Do stay.